Group of Bucks. How about the Milwaukee Bucks? Game of the night last night. Giannis and the Bucks taking on the Wizards. Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. Spectacular. Fourth quarter, under 90 to play. Wizards down by 4. Westbrook, Beal. Beal, throw it down, big fella, with authority. Beal throwing it down for 2 of his 42 on the night. Next possession, Beal, Mr. Outside, as well as Mr. Inside. Knock it down to 3. We got a good game. 14 seconds to go. Milwaukee up by 2. Drew Holiday probing, stepping back. 3, no good. Brook Lopez. Oh, the offensive rebound on the putback. Milwaukee up by 4. Other end, 7 seconds left. Get used to that combination. Westbrook to Beal. Beal for 3. It's good. Wizards down by 1. Stay with the play. I want you to watch what happens on the ensuing inbounds. That's Raul Neto. He's got the steal they need, but the foot is on the line. Take another look at just how close they are to getting the defensive play they need. And so instead, they get this. The Bucks inbounding. It's up and good. This is the Wizards' last chance to win it. The fling, and it's not there. Westbrook would score 29, 17 assists, 12 boards. The Bucks win it 135-134 in a good one. And so here's a look at the Eastern Conference standings, where the Sixers sit atop everybody with a 2-game lead over the Nets. Milwaukee right now, the 3 seed, 3 games back. Our basketball power index gives the Sixers a 95% chance to get the 1 seed. And so here again is Jay Will from KJZ across the hall, ESPN Radio, coast to coast. So we see the Eastern Conference standings, but I just want you to look at this number. I want everyone to just sort of focus on this for a minute, because we keep talking about the Brooklyn Nets as though they're an unstoppable machine. They have played 7 games together this season. 7. Let's make it clear. James Harden has played more games this year with the Rockets than he has with KD and Kyrie Irving together. Is that no factor? Doesn't that have to matter when we get to the playoffs?
What's KD's number? 7?
I mean,
their whole thing around 7-11, 7's like their special number?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be 7 games going into the playoffs because James Harden is not coming back for the last couple games of the season. I'm not worried about the Nets. I'm not. You know why? I'm not worried about them defensively. Outscore them, Greeny. Outscore Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. 3 of the most prolific scorers we have in the game. They're in the top 10 prolific scorers in the game. Outscore them. Outscore them. I don't think any team in the Eastern Conference is going to outscore them. There is one team, though, that defensively might try to muck it up that can make a difference, though. And I think that's the 76ers.
All right, so that was going to be my next stop. If indeed you still believe, again, I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around the fact that they will play 7 games together and be the favorites in the conference. Okay. But they are. I accept that, and I don't disagree with you. You're telling me Philly is their biggest opposition?
So there was something that happened the other night, and I know a lot of people at home was like, oh, how are you going to take this quote by this star player and utilize it towards having Philadelphia in the NBA Eastern Conference Championship? But look, I understand that people are going to be complimentary about Kevin Durant, right? But like, this is a game about, I'm trying any way possible, Greeny, to beat you to the white meat. I have to beat you. I have to go through you. When Giannis said, oh, why would I go out Kevin Durant? He's one of the best players of all time. No, I don't want to hear that from you, Giannis. You think Joel Embiid's going to say that about Kevin Durant or James Harden? You think Ben Simmons? Did you hear what Ben Simmons said about the Nets before? I mean, I'm waiting for the 76ers and the Nets to have the rivalry that the NBA needs the Eastern Conference to have. This will be old school Eastern Conference basketball because these 2 teams will end up not liking each other when it's all said and done.
So Mike Breen was on ESPN Radio the other day. He said he could see 3 teams coming out of the East: the Sixers, the Bucks, the Nets. Put them in order as far as likelihood. Give me the order of likelihood you could see of those 3 teams coming out of the East.
Gonna blow your mind right now. I mean, look, I still think the Nets can do it, but I would go 76ers, I would go Nets, then I would go Bucks.
So you're getting the Sixers the nod over the Nets?
I think the Sixers defensively, even though as gifted as the scoring is for the Nets, and I'm a Nets fan, it's different. It's different. If Joel Embiid is playing like Joel Embiid, it's different considering the lack of continuity and familiarity for the Brooklyn Nets.
Now, the Nets have the stars, but maybe the Sixers has the MVP. All right, he is Jay Will, KJZ, coast to coast every morning on ESPN Radio. Thank you, Jay.
You got it, Greeny.
Oh, impressive. All right, let's go back to Milwaukee. Talk about that huge win for the Bucks over Brooklyn last night. 2nd straight game between the 2. And once again, wildly entertaining, elite shot making all over the place. And while a lot of scoring happened, Giannis, 36 in the win. That was after his 49 spot on Sunday. After the game, Steve Nash and Kevin Durant talked about the continuity advantage Milwaukee has over Brooklyn. Take a listen.
We've got a gap to make up here. So we understand that's a team that's been running the same offense, been playing together, same schemes on defense for years now, gone deep into the playoffs, and that's something that we don't have. So how can we make up that gap? And that's kind of our life in a nutshell heading home here.
That is a huge factor. I mean, continuity is a big thing in this league, but we got veterans on this team that played in different situations that know pretty much every terminology that goes on in this league and every kind of set that we run on both sides. So that's in our advantage as well, having that veteran leadership. But, we still are a connected group.
All right, so Zach, I'm going to start with you. What did you learn from these two games? 2 Bucks victories in 3 days.
Well, with all due respect to Steve Nash and Kevin Durant, what makes the Bucks interesting is they're not running the same offense as they have in the last 2 years, and they're not playing the same kind of defense they have in the last 2 years, and their roster is very different than it has been, and that starts with Jrue Holiday. And I think in these 2 games, you have really viscerally felt the power of just having another high-level, all-star-level player on their team, someone who can go get a bucket, who can bully people in the post, who can actually bother Kyrie Irving, although he didn't bother him too much last night, on defense. It just feels so much sort of more potent and powerful. The other thing that I took away is not just that, but it was interesting last night that Bud closed the game with Giannis at center and basically 4 guards. No PJ Tucker, no Bobby Portis, no Brook Lopez. That's a look that we haven't seen a lot of this year, and it's another thing that suggests to me, along with more PJ Tucker at center lately, that they're starting to ramp up and figure out how they want to play.
Now let me give everybody a little bit of a hint. If you are playing against a potential conference finals or conference semis opponent, 2 back-to-back games, 2 weeks before the playoffs, how many games we got? 7, 8 games left before the playoffs. You're not going to show them the defense that you would play against them in when you play against them in the postseason. So that's what I love about what Milwaukee has done all year long. They have tinkered with different lineups. They have tinkered with different defenses. They have done all of that stuff to get themselves in a position where whatever you throw at them or whatever defense you're going to try and throw at them, they've already worked on somewhat of an answer. So I really love what Milwaukee is doing. You can see that the Nets will need James Harden, not necessarily to win, but they're going to need him to be dominant. If you're going to be a dominant team and you're going to run through a conference like everyone thought they were going to do, you're going to need to be fully loaded, because if you show up with 2 of the 3 superstars, that brings you to an even level, as in my opinion.
Look
as
at
Philly.
these numbers.
Yeah,
I think you can say that you need him to win. If this was a series, you would need him to win. I think these numbers are really, really interesting, because Kevin Durant, of course, is sort of the activator. You throw him on any offense and he just kind of can perform magic. But James Harden is their MVP level point guard, and he has not been playing in these games. So by definition, assuming he is able to make it back by the time these 2 would meet in the playoffs, it is going to be a different series, different defenses, things like that. I think not having James Harden there mattered more than we maybe have talked about in the last couple of days. I do think that Jrue Holiday's defense on Kyrie Irving was really something to watch. Very impressive. And I was at that game on Sunday, and going into it, I talked to a lot of the Bucks about what they have been able to learn this season. They tried defensive switching in a way that they hadn't before, different offenses than they have before, and they really feel they are going into these playoffs more flexible and more prepared than they have since the Bud and Giannis pairing started.
The one thing that I'm going to say is this. Where it becomes so difficult when you have 3 superstars is, okay, Jrue Holiday, Kyrie's great. Jrue Holiday is a solid defender. Jrue Holiday will do as good of a job as anybody. But then who guards James Harden?
That is my point. So James Harden, I don't think you can say like, oh, well, James wasn't there, so blah, 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 blah. It's such a huge difference. I almost can't look at these games. They're great confidence builders for the Bucks, and I think it's great to see the Bucks offense functioning the way they are, their defense functioning the way it has been, an improvement over some of the games last week. But that being said, like, I can't evaluate this matchup because there's no James Harden in it. And we saw the numbers, and he just makes such a significant difference. We will have to see. Of course, there's no guarantee he or any of the big 3 will be there in a playoff series because we just haven't seen it that much this season. But the intention is for them all to be there. Zach Lowe, you're going to take a quick segment off, but stick around. You will be back later in the show, and you're bringing your friend Clint Capella.